Welcome to the regular meeting of the Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee for June 3rd, 2026. I am Jason Chavez, the chair of this committee. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville. Absent. Vita.
Present.
Whiting.
Present.
Vice Chair Stevenson.
Present.
And Chair Chavez.
Present.
That is 6 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum and we will be joined by Councilmember Rainbow in a little bit. I'll remind my colleagues that we'll be using speaker management today, so please make sure to sign in. Our agenda is in front of us, so before we begin with the consent agenda, I'll move to delete item number 3, the appointment of police chief from the former police chief, Brian O'Hara, from the agenda. Brian O'Hara has resigned from his position as police chief and no public hearing will be held. So on the motion to delete, I'll open up the queue if there's any comments or questions. All right. On the motion to delete, all those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion is deleted. We will have 2 scheduled public hearings, item number 1 and number 2 on the agenda, after we conclude with our consent agenda. If you would like to speak on either public hearing item and you have not signed up yet, please see the clerks at the registration table outside of the hall. On our consent agenda, we have a variety of different items. Item number 4 authorizes a contract amendment with Michael S. Wilson for audit services for neighborhood associations. Item number 5 authorizes a contract amendment with Trajectory Changing Solutions for violence prevention services. Item number 6 authorizes contract amendments with Restoration Inc., Metro Youth Diversion, and Touch Outreach for Minneapolis Strategic Outreach Initiative Services. Item number 7 accepts the Urban Area Security Initiative grant for enhancing emergency management capabilities and authorizes an agreement with the Minnesota Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for the grants. Item number 8 accepts the Emergency Management Performance Grant for emergencies and disasters and authorizes an agreement with the Minnesota Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for the grant. Item number 9 accepts the Strong Foundation's Professional Development Grant for evidence-based family home visits, professional development, and authorizes an agreement with the state of Minnesota for the grant. Item number 10 approves the 8th Street Crossing Amplified Sound Permit Extension for June 12th, July 10th, August 1st, and August 28th. Item number 11 sets a public hearing for June 17, 2026 for the All Gender and Sexuality Welcoming City Ordinances. Item number 12 sets a public hearing for June 17th, 2026 for the Law Enforcement Concealment of Identity Ordinance, which is a separate item from the one we have on the public hearing today. I'll pull this item for a separate motion and a quick discussion. Item number 13 sets a public hearing for June 17, 2026 for the Adult Bathhouse and Sex Venues Health and Sanitation Ordinance. Item number 14 sets a public hearing for June 17, 2026 to consider the mayor's nomination of Rachel Sayer to the appointed position of Emergency Management Department Director. Item number 15 sets a public hearing for July 8, 2026 to consider a no-cost contract with Skydio for a drone as first responder pilot program for the period of 75 days beginning July 2026. Colleagues, is there any discussion or are there any items anyone would like to pull for further discussion? Council President Payne.
Can we take up item 15 as a separate vote?
And Council President Payne, yes, we can, but this is is to set up public hearing. It's not the item itself.
Ah, got it.
Do you still want to pull it out?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we will keep that under consent. As a reminder, item number 15 is just setting the public hearing. It's not the vote itself. Okay. So no one wishes to pull anything out except myself, which is item number 12. All those in favor on approving these items 4 through 11, 13 to 15, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstention? That item carries. Item number 12 is the law enforcement concealment of identity ordinance, which is a separate ordinance from the one that we have today. I am going to move to postpone this to the next Public Health and Safety Committee, which is June 17, 2026, as the authors and myself continue to have conversations on a pathway forward for this ordinance. Is there any discussion or questions my colleagues have? Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'm just grateful for you taking the lead on this. I'll never forget waking up to the news that Melissa Hortman was assassinated and her killer was still on the loose. It is completely, I don't even have the words to describe what it was like to both wake up to that type of news and then live through an occupation by the federal government and not know who was law enforcement, who wasn't law enforcement, who were you safe to be around, who were you not safe to be around. And I think that it just completely dismantles any concept of trust in government to allow for that kind of conduct. And so I'm just grateful that we're using all of our power at the local level to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Just a question, did you say you're moving this back one more cycle?
Yeah, so I would be moving to postpone any action on this item until the next council meeting as the authors continue to figure out what we're going to do.
Okay, and you and I had discussion about
Yep.
this. Is this like the larger?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep, and so today there would be no action on it, as authors were still navigating the broader ordinance that will speak a little bit into more details today, but it is separate from the item, just for the public to know, the one that we're having today. So please stay if you're here for the public hearing. So yes.
So do we think like the 2 weeks is gonna make a change, or is this like a month out thing maybe?
We just needed that time today. It's not going to be next cycle. We just needed 2 weeks to at least as
I
authors
see.
we collect ourselves and figure out our next steps.
Got it,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, on that motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That is going to be on the agenda next cycle as an item, not a public hearing. All right, colleagues. Next, we're going to take up our public hearings reflected in items number 1 and 2 on the agenda. Anybody who signed up for these items will be given 2 minutes each to testify. If you have questions, please see our clerks at the registration table outside. For everyone in attendance, and especially those who may participate in our hearings or comment period, let me offer this notice. These hearings are being recorded and broadcasted. Both the recording and the broadcast are classified as public data under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act. By attending and participating in these proceedings, your image and any testimony or information that you provide will also be subject to disclosure under the law. That includes, but is not limited to, your attendance, your name, and other personal details you provide, as well as any testimony or comments you provide, which includes any written submissions you make, which are included for the record of this meeting. Our first public hearing is for the Law Enforcement Agency Agreements Ordinance. I will speak on this item. So we'll just wait for the presentation to go up. Colleagues, this is the Law Enforcement Agency Agreements Accountability Ordinance, authored by myself, Councilmember Chowdhury, Councilmember Chugtai, and Councilmember Osman. This ordinance prohibits the city from entering into or amending a law enforcement joint powers agreement unless an agency's officers are prohibited from concealing their identity while performing activities within the city of Minneapolis. This applies regardless of dollar amount, and it requires that a requester for JPA approval must disclose whether the agency has a concealment policy and whether the agency will apply that policy when it is operating within the city of Minneapolis, regardless of whether the agency is operating under the terms of the proposed JPA. This slide includes amendments that we are proposing today. The prohibition contains the following exceptions when an officer is actively engaged in and performing the responsibilities and furtherance of an undercover assignment. However, the law enforcement agency would need to demonstrate that at the time the officer was masked, they were actively engaged in and performing work in furtherance of an undercover assignment. wearing a shield or eye protection that does not conceal the officer's face, wearing a medical or facial covering to prevent the transmission of disease, infection, or bodily fluids during medical calls, emergency situations, or other interactions where protection of the officer, individual, or the public is reasonably necessary, wearing air purifier respirators, self-contained breathing apparatus, or other facial protections, wearing a helmet assigned to special weapons and tactical team units, so the SWAT, wearing a facial covering to protect against inclement weather if the facial covering has officers' names and badge number visibly affixed, which it has the specific amount of when that exception would be included, and actively collecting evidence or taking photographs at a crime scene. So this ordinance is really important because the city can ensure that when it enters into JPAs with different law enforcement agencies, those officers are identifiable to the public, and the agencies acting under the terms of the agreement are not concealing their identities except for the few exceptions. And it is important that residents recognize those who are sworn to protect and serve them to be able to report any police misconduct that may occur. This ordinance is effective for JPAs entered or amended on or after August 31st, 2026. And I will say that I understand that this is not everything that community has been asking for or advocating for, but I'll say that it's a start, and you have my commitment to continue finding a pathway for the more broader masking ordinance that folks have been advocating for the past year and beyond. We know that this ordinance is limited in scope, but it is still very important, and I just want to at least start with that. So with that, colleagues, we'll open it up for questions after the public hearing that you may have, and I'll see if anybody has signed up. Thank you, Vice Chair Stevenson. The first person we have today is Yan, and if I mispronounce your name, please let me know.
Do I start? Hello, Council. Thank you for having a public hearing on this topic. My name is pronounced Jan, but it's okay. I'd like to speak out in favor of this new policy. I do think that it does not go far enough in terms of protecting the citizens who both live in Minneapolis or myself who frequently commute to and do business in the city. Today is June 3rd, and I think it's pertinent to remember that June 3rd last year was when the first major operation occurred at Lake in Bloomington, where I don't even know, hundreds, thousands of people, neighbors came out to protest undisclosed federal actions from multiple agencies who were all wearing masks to obscure their identities in very non-uniform ways. So a lot of the things that I'm reading about in the existing text would have stopped those actions a year ago. The problem that I see with this is that unlike the provision that was passed in St. Paul, which I see that much of this language is modeled after, there is no specifics about how the city is going to engage with federal officers in sort of regulating this behavior within the city, even though it's not coming from city police. So that thing definitely needs to be amended to provide some sort of pathway to preventing any sort of agency from operating with facial coverings that obscure their identity and prevent any sort of accountability on our end. And I think the city should be able to improve the language in order to adopt this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Alvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. My name is Alvin Chung, and I'm a constituent of Minneapolis Ward 2. I'm also a member of the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, or MIRAC. I'm here to voice our strong support for the ordinance to restrict masking. To this day, we're still struggling to get justice for Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and Victor Manuel Diaz, 3 Minnesotans who were killed by ICE during Operation Metro Surge. It's extremely clear that the federal government will do just about anything to escape accountability for crimes ranging from pedophilia, corruption, and murder. Thus, the onus is on local and state governments to stop enabling federal agents to abuse our communities and get away with it. City Council and Mayor Fry, do right by the people that have been terrorized and murdered in your city and pass this ordinance to require mask regulation from any law enforcement agency the city partners with. And that should only be the first step. We need to move forward to banning secret police in our city entirely. St. Paul has already enacted a policy of requiring all law enforcement officers conducting operations in their city to do so without a mask or facial covering months ago. It is frankly embarrassing that the city that has faced the brunt of Operation Metro Surge is still debating this topic. From our Sanctuary City campaign last fall, where MIRAC successfully pushed for a stronger separation ordinance in Minneapolis, we are all too aware of the immense amount of pressure needed to get Mayor Fry and other elected officials to do the right thing. That's why MIRAC is continuing our momentum with the Sanctuary State Now campaign, where we're pushing Walz and the gubernatorial candidates to enact statewide measures to protect our communities from the violence of immigration enforcement, like banning collaboration between local agencies and ICE, and banning the masking of federal agents. Therefore, we strongly support policies like this. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sally. Welcome.
Hi there. My name is Sally Lieberman. I'm a lifelong Minneapolitan and a member of Unidos, Minnesota. I live in Ward 12. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for listening. I would like to speak in support of this ordinance, amending the city's code to ensure that when our city enters into agreements with other law enforcement agencies, those agreements disallow concealment of identity. I am also very much aware that today is the anniversary of the incident at Lake and Bloomington that for many of us Southsiders marked the beginning of what we now usually referred to as Metro Surge. The issue of law enforcement personnel concealing their identities is something that, unfortunately, we Minneapolitans have a lot of experience with due to the behavior of federal immigration enforcers during Operation Metro Surge. We have seen with our own eyes how wearing masks can be used as a form of intimidation, especially against immigrants and communities of color. We have also seen a direct correlation between identity concealment and lawless behavior on the part of law enforcement, from running red lights to racial profiling to acts of violence and physical harm to violations of our First and Fourth Amendment rights. I also believe we should all be concerned with the potential for identity concealment to become normalized and to creep into local policing. For example, when responding to a protest at the Whipple building recently, Hennepin County Sheriff deputies were caught on film wearing ICE-style face coverings while being violent toward protesters. When our city enters into agreements with county law enforcement or neighboring jurisdictions, those agencies should follow MPD's basic standard. Officers show their faces, they have badges, and they always answer the question, "What is your name?" When we are being policed and we don't know who is policing us, that is not public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Drew.
Thank you for hearing me today. My name is Drew. I'm a proud member of Minnesota 5051. I also want to speak in support of this ordinance. I agree with some of the people who went before me. It doesn't quite go far enough in addressing some of the concerns, but you have to start somewhere. So there's a lot of agreement here on why we need this, but here's why the city should pass it, because I've also heard but this only affects the city of Minneapolis. It's not going to do that much, but again, we got to start somewhere because we're losing faith in our city government, right? We just went through Operation Metro Surge, and a lot of us who were face to face with ICE during that time felt utterly abandoned, not just by our city, but by our county, by our state government. So this is a really great step in the right direction, right? Making sure that you're listening to the constituents and hearing people and, hearing our concerns, because again, like, we cannot have mask police. I even think some of that in that ordinance, right? Like, if they're sick, stay home, don't wear a mask, because I can already see all the ICE agents saying they're scared of getting sick, all of a sudden wanting to wear masks, right? So, I think make it stronger if you can, but start here. It's a great start. And again, work towards getting ICE out of Minneapolis, period, right? But, work towards no mask policing. MPD, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, if they're going to be in our city, no masks. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Next up, we have Rob, and then we're going to have Alyssa. And then if you have not signed up and you're here to testify, please do so.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Alyssa Washington. I'm the executive director of the Wrongfully Incarcerated and Over-Sentenced Families Council, and I'm also a proud member of the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice. We are a family-led nonprofit, and we are here standing in solidarity with MIRAC as well. I urge you to vote in favor of banning face coverings for law enforcement officers while they are carrying out their duties in our communities. For decades, Black, brown, and indigenous immigrant and poor communities in Minneapolis have suffered from a lack of accountability from policing institutions, as we all know. We have buried loved ones. We have witnessed excessive force. We have seen officers violate people's rights and then hide behind a system that too often protects itself. Accountability starts with transparency. When armed officers are operating in our neighborhoods, conducting traffic stops, making arrests, participating in raids, or engaging with community members, the public has a right to know who is policing them. I know others have said that today, and I hope it really sticks with the council members that this is what the community is asking of you to vote in favor of. This issue is especially important for immigrant communities who have recently experienced aggressive enforcement actions and fear. It is important for families like mine who have spent years fighting for accountability from government institutions, and it is important for every resident who believes public servants should be identifiable when exercising public authority. This is not about officer safety versus community safety. We can have both, but we cannot have accountability without transparency. Minneapolis has an opportunity to lead by showing that no one should wield state power from behind a mask while the public is left wondering who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rob.
So before my time begins, can I ask a clarifying question? Where is Michael Rainville, and where is Linnea Palmisano, and where's the rest of the council?
Thanks, Rob. So we're going to start the clock because we have to get going, but Councilmember Rainville is going to be in attendance in a bit, and Councilmember Palmisano is not on this committee.
Okay, so these are the council members that need to hear this. That's why I ask. So my name is Rob. I'm a public school teacher. And my son, when he was 2 years old, he was about 10 feet away when ICE came at gunpoint, took our neighbors away, our next door neighbors. And that was back in January. This morning, same thing happened. This morning, the same thing happened about 5 blocks from where I live. The same thing happened. My question for the council is, what is taking so long? What is taking so long? I don't want to hear excuses about the city attorney saying that there's this or that they need to pass. If Denver, Philly, Milwaukee, San Jose, St. Paul back in February can get this passed, what is the holdup in Minneapolis? You need to pass this, right? You need to pass this. And I know the people here, y'all want to pass this, right? The people who aren't here are the holdups, and we need a 9-vote majority to overturn Jacob Fry's inevitable veto of this, right? So my question for you is, how can you work together to get this done? We need more than this. We need consequences in the legislation. We need the legislation to have consequences, okay? We can't just have this on the books. There needs to be consequences for when the Hennepin County sheriffs come in masked and we don't know who they are, and people confuse them with ICE, right? My students are still in hiding 5 months later as a result of what's been going on, because they don't know if they step out their door if some masked gunman's going to take them, and they don't know who's who anymore, right? So we need more than this. We need more than this, but I want you to know, the people who are here, you get a lot of hate from the mayor. You get a lot of hate from the Facebook comments from people in Lakeville. But I like you, and I support you, and I want you to work together to get this done. Thank you for your work.
All right, everyone. If you have not signed up to testify, I'm going to give 3 warnings. Warning 1, please sign up to testify. No? Second warning? Third warning? All righty. Seeing no one else wishing to testify, I will now close this hearing and open up the queue for any comments from my colleagues. But I'll start off with a few comments. I will move approval of this item with the revisions in front of us. If I can get a second.
Second.
And colleagues, I hope that we can earn your support on this ordinance today. As I mentioned earlier, this is not entirely what the community is asking for, but it is a start, and it gives us time to bring forward the future action that is on the agenda today that we moved to the next cycle meeting to hear the concerns from our community. Because the reality is that masked agents have invaded our city and have taken advantage of our community. And I hope when that time comes, we can earn your support to pass that ordinance as well. This morning, a neighbor was kidnapped in Ward 9 by ICE agents in the Corcoran neighborhood. There was a variety of ICE agents, and they were masked, and that was a very scary situation for many of my constituents. This individual had his window broken into, and he was snatched from his car. And 1 year ago today, law enforcement agents from a variety of different agencies surrounded Lake and Bloomington, and they concealed their identity and brought military trucks, long guns, and zip ties into our community that instilled, quite frankly, a lot of fear. And throughout Occupation Metro Surge, our city was invaded by the federal government. We saw a variety of masked agents hiding their identities and kidnapping our immigrant neighbors. And that is just something that will never be acceptable to me. So I'm hopeful that I can earn your support on this ordinance as amended, and also hear the concerns from our community that this is not enough. I agree with you, and my commitment to the community is to continue to figure out how we can get that done, because you're correct. St. Paul passed this months ago. Why aren't we? I take that feedback very seriously, and am committed to working with my colleagues to hear any concerns that they have as well. So I want to make sure that we can all get this done. So with that, colleagues, are there any questions? Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I also agree this isn't enough, but it is a start. I kind of have an overly simplified governing principle, which is like do something or do nothing. Both of those are a choice. We're choosing to do something here, but it isn't enough, and it's going to open up for doing another thing and another thing we need to keep on doing until we have full accountability for the occupation of Minneapolis and the abuses that the federal government had on the city of Minneapolis and its residents. I'm grateful to County Attorney Mario Moriarty for taking that first step of bringing charges for some of these federal agents who were violating our rights. That's not enough either. We got a national search warrant and arrested somebody in Texas. That's not enough either, right? There's still more to be done, and I'm committed to doing it. So I'm really grateful for you all being here and making sure that we're held accountable to that work.
Councilmember Whiting.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Just want to note here too, and I think it's, looking at the ordinance, and I appreciate the work that you all have put into this, especially as we look forward as a creative way to attach some levels of consequences and I think accountability in the frame of kind of law enforcement and law enforcement agencies across our city. And I think, right, it sounds like I'm trying to figure out, the version of this and where the applicability of a ordinance like this does exist, right? And I think as we have seen across the country, right, these federal agents aren't listening to the Constitution. Like, are they likely to listen to an ordinance? And so I think we know that answer is no. But I think what this does do, and I appreciate the work of what this does, is kind of for those local jurisdictions, and ensuring that, MPD, Hennepin County Sheriffs, any agency in which the Minneapolis Police Department engages in these joint power agreements has to be consistent to that. And so I think it's a deeper understanding of what this actually does, and it allows for and puts some safeguards in place for that with agencies that we have an ability to kind of come to that level of accountability piece. And then just wanted to note here too, because I think it's actually a fun fact. So we don't necessarily have a mask or a non-masking mandate in MPD policy at the moment, but it is technically against like MPD uniform standards, and so it isn't actually precluded in level of MPD policy, because you can't wear a mask with your like MPD issued uniform, and so there's an ability for it to kind of fit in there as well. And so again, I think just thank you to all the folks that are moving forward on this, and I'm excited to see it move through.
Vice Chair Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to thank my constituents and my friends for coming and speaking to this item. This is super important. Again, it's a first step, and your comments are really important, and your push to us is really important to getting this across the finish line and doing what we all know we should have done in November. Sorry, not in November, in February. So thank you. Thanks for coming.
Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Councilmember Whiting invoking the inability for the federal government to even comply with the Constitution just made me remember the day that, we were interacting with ICE agents at the 2nd Precinct parking lot. And we had a bunch of community observers just making sure that we knew where their location was. And they ended up in the 2nd Precinct parking lot. And I had to go and introduce myself as the council president and remind them that we had passed a law banning their use of our city-owned property for these purposes. They didn't listen to me either, right? I'm sitting there face to face with masked armed agents, completely ignoring me, ignoring the law of our city, ignoring the law of our country via our constitutional rights. But I thought it was really important to be able to stand firm that, no, this is the law of the land. And the thing that actually enforced that law was not me invoking my authority as the president of this body. It was the number of everyday people showing up and more and louder that made them ultimately leave. And it's just a reminder that this is a land governed by its people. The laws are downstream from its people, and the people are the power. And we are going to make sure that we are in alignment with our people. And we're going to do that one law at a time, and how we carry ourselves every day. So really appreciate you being here again. And it's just a reminder that even with the highest law of this land in our Constitution, the highest law is the people. So thank you.
Councilmember Vita. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I don't have my laptop with me. I have a question for our city attorney. I have been briefed on this, and I said I was going to ask this. How will this affect the agreements we have with these agencies? Has someone talked to these outside agencies to see what their response is?
Chair Chavez and Councilmember, I actually don't know the answer to whether someone has talked with these other agencies. This would apply to new or amended JPAs. So when we had the discussions about those new or amended JPAs, that's the discussion that would have to happen then. It would go into new contracts, amended contracts, but not change the ones that are currently in existence.
Mm-hmm. And I realize this is not to change what we have, but or maybe one of the authors knows what the response would be. I mean, would they still enter into these agreements with us?
So, Councilman Rainville, I mean, we've been in discussion with the sheriffs regarding this ordinance, which some of those conversations resulted in some of the amendments that are here today. Some of the contracts we do have in these JPAs are the patrols and Hennepin County are some examples. So.
And what do they say?
Well, we met about some of the language that we brought forward today, and that's why there's amendments today. So Yeah, Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Rainville, when this came up, Councilmember Chavez gracefully worked with me and the sheriff's office. They had a list of amendments that they wanted to work on in this ordinance, and they are certainly reflected in the final language of what we have before us today. And the sheriff's office was also coordinating with other agencies around, what a comprehensive ordinance change would look like. Not the larger one. You missed the discussion about the larger, more broader one. This has kind of been condensed into what the council has authority to do right now with the joint powers agreement. But there's certainly been discussion with the partners in those agreements around this.
Great, thank you. And I do apologize to the committee for being late. I was involved in a discussion about the shootings on Nicollet Mall and the deaths along the river this past couple days. So I had to prioritize that. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. We're not going to have any public. Thank you. We just did this public testimony. We're going to focus on the committee work today. So, Councilmember Whiting, or actually, sorry, Councilmember Vita.
No, I was just coming.
Okay. Councilmember Whiting.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Chavez. And just wanted to make a note as well, specifically about kind of some comments here. So I wanted to correct the record, right? This is a committee. There's only 7 of us, so the rest of the council isn't here. So it's only us as a committee. And I'm excited to see, I think the majority of this will actually probably move forward with a hopeful unanimous vote, and I highly doubt it will be vetoed. I know Councilmember Palmisano fully supports this ordinance as written. I know Councilmember Vita and Councilmember Chavez worked together with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office to come up with a version of this to actually move forward in this body. And so just wanted to make sure that was out there as well.
Yep. Thanks, Councilmember Whiting. And all right, no one else is on queue. So if we may take a roll call on the amended version with approval, that would be great. Thanks, Clerk.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville.
Aye.
Vita.
Aye.
Whiting.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stevenson.
Aye.
And Chair Chavez.
Aye.
That is 7 ayes.
Thank you, and that is moved forward with approval to the full council. Our next item is a public hearing on a contract amendment with Sound Thinking, Inc. for a gunshot location system. In 2025, council adopted an ordinance related to surveillance technology contracts. This ordinance requires a presentation on the proposed contract and a public hearing be held before city enters into surveillance technology contracts. I will invite up Emergency Communications Director Joni Hudney to begin that presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez, council members. I'm Joni Hodney, the Director of 911. You'll be hearing today from both myself and from Deputy Chief Riddle about the benefits of ShotSpotter, both for our residents and as a critical tool supporting 911 and our first responders. Our goal today isn't to give you, our goal today is to give you a clear understanding on what the technology is and what it isn't, and how it enhances our ability to be able to respond. ShotSpotter is essentially an array of acoustic sensors placed strategically throughout the city. When gunfire occurs, those sensors work together to pick up the sound and to regulate it, triangulate it, meaning they work together to determine exactly where it came from. The technology gives us details that callers often can't, such as the number of shots, whether from multiple firearms, if the shots were an automatic gun, or even if their shooter was moving. All of this helps us to build an accurate picture of what's happening much faster than traditional means. The system screens out non-gunshot noises such as fireworks and backfires. Sensors are tuned to detect only the high-energy impulsive sound that's unique to gunfire. ShotSpotter does not function as an acoustic surveillance tool. While no system is perfect, ShotSpotter includes multiple layers of filtering so we aren't sending officers to fireworks or a car backfire. I'll explain the process more fully in a slide later on, but important is not that this is not a surveillance tool. These sensors are not designed to pick up conversation. They're tuned to detect one very specific type of sound, and that's gunfire. Gunshots have a very distinct wave pattern compared to other loud noises, so the system is engineered to capture those noises and sounds. Some of the ShotSpotter benefits that we're going to talk about is that it provides rapid, detailed alerts that help responders. One of the biggest advantages of ShotSpotter is the speed. As soon as the gunfire is detected, responders receive a very specific location information, often more precise than what we can get from callers. It's understandable that callers may only have a general sense of the direction when they're calling in. Officers can see this information on smartphones and computer equipment inside the squad cars, while dispatch is receiving this information and able to give more detailed information along with callers that are calling in to the responders that are going to the scene. Seconds truly matter, and any technology that gets responders to the right spot faster has the potential to save lives. From the 911 perspective, ShotSpotter fills in the gaps we often had when taking a shots fired call. Callers do their best, but we frequently hear conflicting information. Someone thinks the shots came from the north. Another caller reports they came from the south. One person may have heard 10 shots and another person may have heard 20. Without additional tools, it's difficult to determine what's actually occurring. ShotSpotter gives us concrete details, location, number of rounds, and movement that helps us identify if the shots are being fired from a vehicle or somebody running down the street. These help us make more timely and accurate decisions to ensure officers are going exactly where they're needed. Here's kind of what happens behind the scenes when a ShotSpotter activation goes off. Each acoustic sensor captures the precise location and sound. That is then sent to a sound thinking center, actually out in California, where the group of people that are listening to these, that's all they listen for all day long, is these wave files to determine if it's fireworks, backfires, or gunshots. That helps them to weed out the ones that are not gunshot activity and be able to send to us in less than 60 seconds an accurate picture of shots fired in the area. While sometimes 60 seconds may seem a long time period, I can tell you that there was a time period before technology improved that we used to have to listen to these files ourselves down at the 911 center. That often took more time than what this takes for it to bounce out to California and back to us. Being trained and learning how to look at those files and be able to hear that sound and determine what it was less accurate for us when we've got all of our background noise and the callers and dispatches going on in the background. So this has proven to be a much more reliable tool for us. So here's what happens when the ShotSpotter activation goes off. We get a screen that pops up that shows us the yellow flag that you see here, which tells us where the shots are being fired from and a number of shots that are being fired. If there's already a related call, we add that to the comments so that we've got the combined information from our callers in the area as well as the information from the ShotSpotter system. In this particular picture, you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but there are 2 shots being fired from that location. The other tool that we have with the shot spotter mapping inside the dispatch center is we can pull up an accurate location. So imagine it's January, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. Officers have gone out and they're trying to locate shell casings, which is critical to them helping to solve shootings or pick up calls for even ones that haven't been an actual shooting but are from a case because of the shots being fired. We can take this tool and we can measure from any point that we want to at this and tell the officers, for example, look 6 feet from the front door to the north of the yard for these shell casings that might now be buried under snow. This allows the officers to have a more precise location to be able to start to take this down. One of the key factors with this is the being able to let them know that this is from a moving vehicle or a person walking. So this isn't coming just from inside of a house or someone standing in front of a house. We can send them to start in the direction if someone's moving north in a vehicle to have them head to the north of this location and start to work their way back in hopes to be able to more quickly locate the person that might have been firing those shots. I'm going to end my part of the presentation with a couple of incidents that have occurred over the last few years. There have been multiple, but these were some that stood out to me that have been a benefit to the 911 center. 28th and Emerson Avenue North, just in May, ShotSpotter activated showing 4 rounds in front of that address at 28th and Emerson. Officers were sent there within 3 minutes and were able to locate and arrest 1 person on site. From 19th and Elliott, ShotSpotter was activated showing 4 rounds at the corner. Officers arrived, checked the area for a suspect, and a male was taken into custody. On 33rd and 4th Avenue South, it activated showing multiple shooters with high-capacity guns with 30 rounds and then 2 more activations. Officers arrived to find a male running down the alley. Male was taken into custody and a firearm was recovered. The only 911 caller, there was only 1 911 caller that called in on this one. So in all of those cases, ShotSpotter has been able to get us to a location more quickly than a call has even been able to come into the center. This call is a little bit older. It's from a couple of years ago, but it's one that truly sticks with me in my heart as we look at the things that ShotSpotter has done for us. From May of 2024, ShotSpotter activated, notifying dispatch of several rounds on the southeast side of the sidewalk on 23rd Avenue North. The first officer arrived on scene and requested medical for a male victim with a gunshot wound to the head. Nearly 4 minutes later is when we got the first phone call. The only 911 caller at that point was from about a block away, reporting hearing shots and someone screaming. There were 2 small children in the back of this vehicle that left the vehicle and started to wander down the street after their dad had been shot. Had officers not been able to respond so quickly to this, we may not have located those children as quickly and easily as we had. So in closing, ShotSpotter is just one of the tools that helps us respond faster, with clearer information, and with a more precise understanding of what's happening during potential gunfire support events. It supports our 911 call taking, enhances the accuracy of our dispatching, and gives responders critical details that they wouldn't already have in those first urgent moments. While no technology is perfect, ShotSpotter fills important gaps and helps us better protect both our residents and our first responders. With that, I'm going to turn it over to DC Riddle.
Welcome. Thank you.
Chair, Vice Chair, Council members. My name is Travis Riddle. I'm the Deputy Chief of Investigations for MPD for the last 4 months. So We have a PowerPoint. I would really like to turn this into a discussion where I can talk to you versus reading off something. So I've taken the time to watch the previous hearings from the last, I guess, 2 years or so. It seems like a lot of the presentation has been on what the technology is. And what I would like to talk to you today is outside of the technology, but how it fits into a violent crime ecosystem. This body implemented or mandated that MPD start a non-fatal shoot team, which started in March. And at this point, for just over 2.5 months or so, the results have been impressive as we continue to work on the processes to make it even better. Part of that non-fatal shoot team is part of that same ecosystem. It is a tool. It is a tool of that ecosystem. Our homicide team is a tool of that ecosystem. Our VCATS, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Team, is part of that ecosystem. Our gun intelligence unit, that's part of our ecosystem. This is all one part. It is a tool, and that's all it is. It is a tool to help the other parts in the ecosystem. As far as for the non-fatal shoots, how it assists the department as far as response and investigations. Much as the director indicated, it does allow the possibility of a quicker dispatch time if there is no corresponding 911 call. But it also allows for investigators to corroborate victim, witness, and suspect statements based on locations on where they think they may have it taken place or where they're claiming it took place. Often these non-fatal shoots are walk-ins to the hospital, so we do not have a scene to work until we actually get that information. The shot spotter information allows us to get to a closer area to preserve that scene, to collect the evidence, so those shell cases, when discovered, can actually be entered into NIBIN and paint the bigger picture. So what I want to put forward is that ShotSpotter is not going to solve your violent crime. It's not what it's designed to do. ShotSpotter is a tool to fit into the ecosystem with the other parts that are in place. So the FAST, VCAT, Homicide, GIU, our Intel, and then our community outreach partners. Because much as I've told the several members that I've had the privilege to talk to, ShotSpotter allows us to identify parts of the area where we have the greatest concentration of gunfire. Being able to be reactive and solve these cases is good. What's more important is to be proactive to prevent those cases from ever occurring. ShotSpotter is a tool to help us do that. And when I say help us do that, proactively means to go, whether it be through enforcement or whether it be through community outreach, whatever off-ramp these individuals would like to take, the goal is to have less people shot. So. I think I just talked about that. So this is often a topic of discussion. Does it increase or decrease response time? So what I want to put up there is just the mean data that we have. One thing that one thing that would be difficult to actually look at all the different possible outliers of what affects response time. I think that would be challenging. So this is just something just kind of a basic to show the decrease or increase in the response times for the gunshots. So this is the current coverage that's in the city of Minneapolis. We have 2 zones, one north, one south. As you can see, the north and south zones have extensive coverage of where our gun violence is taking place. You'll also notice that southwest and also a little bit south of Lake Street, there's portions of the city where that data is not being captured. Keep in mind the southwest portion of that hotspot is solely relied on traditional measuring data pieces such as 911 calls, such as gunshots, subjects with a gun, subjects who are arrested with a firearm. And this is not capturing any gunshot data because there is no coverage. Now, we did make an attempt to pull the data out of our databases. It's not set up to work that way. I can speak to the national average that 80% of ShotSpotter activations have no correlating 911 call. Based on the two data pools that we were able to do, and once again, I'm not saying that these are 100% accurate. It's just the best we could do with the data that we had. One data set was 82%, one data set was 87%. So even if you went in with the national average, 80% of the gunshots are not being reported. It's a huge data point for us to focus when we're looking at proactive activities. This is a little zoom in. So this is also showing the south coverage that we currently have, and also the proposed expansion. The proposed expansion is covering the southwest hotspot, as you saw on the other map. And it's also looking to drop the coverage in the southeast to just south of Lake Street. Right now, we're currently gathering data on the north side of Lake Street, but we are not able to gather the information on the south side of Lake Street. This expansion for the south proposed expansion would what we're estimating would capture an additional 7% of the gunfire for the southern portions of the city. So at this point, what MPD is asking and what Joni's asking for is an extension of the contract. The contract has been expired for several months. Sound Thinking has floated that bill until this was able to get before the council. And we're also asking for an expansion of the current coverage that we have. Joni's shop is going to fund that expansion. It comes out of E911 funds, which are from the state, so it will cost the city nothing. And nothing comes out of the general funds. So for all the taxes that are paid for the cell phones and for the landlines for the E911, this is where the funds are coming from for the expansion.
Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing before we ask any questions. So thank you for that presentation. I will now open the public hearing and look at the list. If you have not signed up to testify and wish to testify, please sign up. And the first speaker is Jan. I feel like
Hello again, Council. Thank you for having a public hearing about this. I was completely unprepared to speak on this topic when I walked in here, but then I saw Sound Thinking Inc. and I did not know what this company was until I looked up that this was indeed ShotSpotter Inc. If you don't know, and something that I've been able to just find in publicly available published documents going back and all the way to 2019, is that ShotSpotter has been mired in numerous legal challenges from the ACLU, alleging the things that were refuted here by its representatives today. But one of the things that I specifically wanted to point out is that major cities across the country have discontinued its use because of the disproportionate costs. And what I am now logically understanding to be basically a self-replicating machine of placing more surveillance in already over-policed neighborhoods. Cities like New York found that it was ineffective. Chicago, the MacArthur Justice Center sued ShotSpotter specifically based on allegations of discrimination. Pasadena, California, the city that was right next to the city that I grew up in Southern California, found that ShotSpotter alerted 75% of their alerts that were received in Pasadena turned up nothing. That's not to say, again, that there were no shots fired, but that is to say that things have no attributed source found. So there's a lack of direct connection between the information that is being received and then the results of investigations at the end. So as a person who's just walked into this situation not knowing what the situation is, but having access to all of this public data, I would say that you should not continue this contract with them. Thank you.
Next up, we have Drew.
Thank you. So, like Jan, I did not come prepared to speak about this, but it's pretty much the same topic that we just covered, no mask policing. Why? Because you can't hold masked men accountable, right? Just like you can't hold sound thinking accountable when inevitably falsely put someone behind bars for a crime they didn't commit, or when inevitably, again, over-polices already over-police neighborhoods here in the city. We already have an issue with a bunch of flock cameras being around our neighborhood, right? We all read 1984. We all know we don't want to give the tools to the state to oppress us in the future. They say they do not record conversations, but, in my time searching for it, I could not find any evidence that they do not record conversations. In fact, I found that they record and instantly transmit everything wirelessly. Whether or not they save that data is another question, but again, they could always change their mind. There's a lot of money in surveillance. I do not want to give the billionaire class these tools in our city to listen to all of our conversations and, again, to use it in the future to oppress us. But then again, it would be used even in the present to oppress us, right? Again, 1 minute of searching found a story of a man, Michael Williams, who spent a year in prison. The only evidence that the prosecutors used was from sound thinking. And then he was released. It was found he did not do it. I do not think we can take any of these chances in this city. Again, we already have issues with over-incarcerating people, with wrongfully incarcerating people. We don't need technology involved in that either. And again, right off the bat, looking it up, it says we use AI-powered technology to do this. AI inherits the same biases that we as a society have. Do we really trust AI to be making decisions that could be putting people behind bars, that could be evidence in a criminal case? And again, if it's not good as evidence in a criminal case, what is it good for? So I really want the council to consider this, vote no against it. Again, we should use technology where we can, but I do not think the technology is there. I do not think it is going to be used in a way that is actually going to be beneficial for the people of Minneapolis. Thank you very much.
And next up, we have Rob.
All right. Rob from Ward 9. I'm a public school teacher. I just wanted to agree with both Jan and Drew on this. So I can't find a lot of information about Sound Thinking Incorporated. I think I would love to see that on the council's, on the city's website somewhere, so we can find out more information about Sound Thinking Incorporated. I do know that with ShotSpotter, it's been widely reported that in New York and Chicago there were studies done, and less than 16% confirmation rates based on ShotSpotter, and less than 1% of that led to the recovery of a gun. So what is it being used for? It's a lot of money and makes us feel unsafe as a result of having a bunch of monitoring all around the city at all times. I also wanted to just state for the record, at approximately 2:10, Michael Rainville took a picture of me right after I spoke out of turn. I apologize, by the way. But I think we could probably look back on the video. He leaned back and took a picture of me. It made me feel very unsafe. I apologize for speaking out of turn, but I just wanted you to hear the public testimony about the prior issue, because my son had a gun held up in his face, and he's 2 years old. And I just want you to hear the rest of the public testimony on the prior topic, and I just encourage you to do that. Also, I'd love to discuss afterwards why you took a picture of me, because that made me feel really, really unsafe. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Next up, we have Alyssa. And then I'll give last warnings to sign up to speak.
As my comrades have already pointed out here, our communities do not need more policing. I know firsthand as a black woman born and raised on the north side, shot spotters are not always accurate, and I'm glad that there is people here that was so quick to go look up on the website of, about what you guys are saying that the shot spotters actually do. We need more resources in our communities, not more funding for shot spotters or keeping the contracts going. There's steady black kids coming up missing, black kids being killed in our communities. Why are we asking for more policing in our communities? I'd like to see more resources going to the people that are actually doing the work, like myself, in our communities to do these things. We have commutation clinics coming up. We have lots of things that can help these kids in our communities not follow down the path of being dead or in prison. We need those resources, not the city and the shot spotter people. Thank you.
I think that's it. So I'll give 3 chances to sign up. If you wish to speak on this item, please sign up. Please sign up. Please sign up. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I will now close this public hearing and open up this item for discussion. First on the agenda is Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. So I've worked quite a bit around the ShotSpotter issue for several years now. And, you know, what is very clear and what was amplified in the public comment is that ShotSpotter is a technology that cities across the country have been sold by big tech as a way to help them address their public safety issues. Yet there is actually very little data that actually suggests that it contributes to helping solve or prevent crimes. And being good fiscal stewards means that we only spend public money on data-backed strategies and programs, and it hasn't been conclusively proven, and I appreciate the anecdotal data that has been shared today, but there hasn't been substantial analytical data that has shown that the $4 million that we are being asked to spend on this, and I want to name what was shared as the financial source for this, is not reflected in the RCA. It shows that IT, the Minneapolis Police Department, and 911 will be sharing that cost across their respective budgets, and it mentions their operating budget, so meaning taxpayer dollars. So I want to name that when it comes to us being asked $4 million or to approve $4 million towards this, then we need to be able to say conclusively there is data that shows that it is going to yield reduction in gun violence. And this is a worthy consideration since we have actually had a contract with Sound Thinking for their ShotSpotter services since 2014. And even with this technology, for over 12 years now, MPD's solve rates for homicides and non-fatal shootings were some of the worst in the country. And we also know that there are cities who do not use this as a tool and have been effective at reducing gun violence in their communities. In fact, if we just look across the river at St. Paul, they do not have ShotSpotter, and they have reached 100% solve rate for homicides and have significantly lower rates of gun violence in general. And one of the key strategies that they used to achieve this was the creation of a non-fatal task force, which also I helped lead the council in appropriating nearly $2 million towards. And even with this implementation, we've seen having dedicated resourcing of physical bodies, investigators, working in a coordinated way has been able to double our closure rates for non-fatal shootings. And I absolutely believe you don't need this particular tool as shown in St. Paul to also achieve that same result. So again, it begs the question of, you know, is the $2 million really giving, or would it give us a good investment of return? Also, I want to note, because we've had outstanding questions for this for 2 years, this body, the council, asked the city auditor to carry out an independent analysis on the efficacy of ShotSpotter. And that will be published August of this year, 2026. And it's not good governance to invest in a 3-year contract without substantial and expansive data. So I am proposing, and I'm going to make the motion to postpone this item by a cycle. So this would come back before us at the June, I believe, 17th PHSE meeting, because we have been in conversations with OCS leadership about an interim approach to make sure we're maintaining some level of existing service, to have a 1-year contract. From my understanding, there was receptivity from OCS, and it was my understanding that you all would have come and shared that in your presentation. But since you have not, I am going to make the motion to postpone this by a cycle so OCS can do the work of preparing a 1-year extension, as we've discussed. Also, I want to note that the city auditor that is actively overseeing the independent analysis of this contract recommended that in their memo too, and highlighting the fact that there are still outstanding questions and there are still so many data points that needs to be addressed and researched before making a decision like this of appropriating nearly $4 million in a 3-year extension with this particular tech company. So with that, I will ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and thank you so much, DC Riddle and Director Hodney, for the presentation. I think everyone knows I'm a fan of ShotSpotter, and I'm a fan of ShotSpotter because the North Side appreciates this and uses this as a tool to save lives. The story that Director Hodney talked about with the man in the car with the gunshot wound to the head and his 2 children who got out of the car and was wandering around was certainly one that is very familiar on the North Side with gunshots, with gun violence, and calls not coming in, and ShotSpotter being the resource and the tool for the police to get there and for others to know what's going on. You told 4 or 5 stories. There's hundreds of stories. The technology was introduced to Minneapolis because someone was shot and was hiding in bushes, and no one even knew what happened, and no one was there to help this person. And that story happens a lot. So in my opinion, and folks who I've heard from the North Side who have shown up here time and time again to say that we want this technology, we believe that ShotSpotter is a tool that the police use to save lives and to get people help. There's a lot of misinformation that comes through 911. A lot. When people are in crisis, when people are trying to get help, they don't always say what is actually happening. You say what you think is happening, and that's not always the case. And so we need additional resources to help us with this. It's not that ShotSpotter is the end-all, be-all. I don't expect ShotSpotter to solve crimes. I think you said it right, DC Riddle. It's a tool. It's one of the things we use to help with investigations. It's one of the things you use to help with getting to a scene and actually knowing where it is happening. I can recall hearing gunshots in my house, what felt like very close to my house, and calling it in and then finding out that they were at the river, way far away from my house. But because of the sound in North Minneapolis and how things radiate, sometimes things sound like they're right next to you, sometimes things sound far away, but we're fortunate to have technology where we know what's happening. So I'm a supporter of this. I'm gonna be a supporter of this. I do not support delaying this. I certainly think that there's an opportunity for us to learn more about this. I don't understand why we keep having the ShotSpotter conversations without talking about, like, for the folks who want to get rid of it, I would really like for us to introduce an alternative to the North Side, to the people who do support ShotSpotter. And this conversation keeps happening about getting rid of ShotSpotter, but nobody's talking about what we can go offer up. And I'm not going to put the time and work into that because I'm not going to put the time and work into that because I support ShotSpotter, and I think ShotSpotter does a good job at making sure we know where this violence is happening in our communities. And so, yeah, I'm really trying to understand why the presentation and what we know ShotSpotter is doing is always on the chopping block when, like, technology has to be used in these times in policing. It's a part of how we live in the world now. Technology is a big piece of that. I use my phone every day. I use my TV. I use my hair dryer. All the things, like, technology is a part of like our lives now, and ShotSpotter is a big piece of that.
Next up, we have Council Member Whiting.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Just a few questions, so I don't know if it's better for Director or DC Riddle. I think first question here, specifically as it relates to, I think, a motion to delay here. If either of you can speak to the understanding of does this contract stay in place? It looks like it's an extension through March 21st of 2029. Are we already expired in that contract? And if there is a motion to delay, looks like for a cycle, would there be any lapse in service in the meantime?
Chair, Council Member, the contract has been expired. Sound Thinking has been floating the bill since its expiration, awaiting for this to get before this body. After meeting with Vice Chair, he expressed, and potentially rightfully so, the concern of doing a long-term contract before the city auditor's report comes out. I do not think that thinking is flawed. I think that's completely fair. So based on his feedback, I proactively reached out to Sound Thinking. Sound Thinking is more than willing to do a shorter-term contract to give the city ability to not only keep the coverage that they have, there's also an option to do the expansion if this body so chooses, and also with enough time for this body to evaluate, first of all, what the city auditor's recommendations are, and also for this body to potentially make a determination of what they are expecting success to look like, so that when we're having future conversations, we can actually give you the data that you're looking for to say, this is effective, this isn't effective. But like many things, the shot spotter, once again, that's a challenging matrix. It is part of an ecosystem. And so when we're talking about success, was it the shot spotter? Was it the non-fatal shoot team? Those are things that have to be taken into consideration. So I'm more than willing to sit down with anybody in this room to come up with what that data set looks like, so that in the future we're able to give you as accurate a report we can possibly get you, because once again, we want you to make informed decisions that are best for the city.
Thank you, and that's extremely helpful, DC. I really appreciate that. Those are probably the right. I have, I think, some continued questions about the efficacy of the shot spotter system, but it sounds like that will probably come up at a later date, and would enjoy a conversation with yourself to kind of figure out some of those the efficacy points on this. And so I appreciate the notes there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. I have a few questions, DC read also. So the contract has expired, but it's still existing, correct?
Yes.
So it's still, if there's a shooting in one of these zones.
It is still active, Chair. Sound Thinking, because they knew the contract was coming up early on. I know this was set for agenda and it's been moved, and they have continuously agreed to continue it. But after feedback from Vice Chair this afternoon, based on as I said, the city auditor's report that's imminently going to be reported, I did have conversations with Sound Thinking, and once again, I do offer up that they have agreed to do a shorter-term contract if this body so sees fit.
Okay, so just to clarify, a delay of a cycle wouldn't stop this program from existing. It would just, okay, so it would still happen. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the public understood that. And then can the police department talk about their position on the, 1-year timeline? I think that would be important. I think one thing that we should be navigating here, I hope, is we're being asked for a 3-year extension. There's an audit report coming out on the shot spotter in August. I don't think it makes sense to say we're going to do this for 3 years when we don't even know the results of the audit report. I think a good compromise here is extending it for 1 year, as then we as council start analyzing what the audit report says. And I think that's why the delay is being offered today. So I guess will the police department be bringing, if this is delayed a cycle, will the police department be bringing the 1-year extension instead next cycle?
I don't know if the police department will do it, but somebody will. Chair. Someone will bring that forth. If the council, if this body feels that the 1 year is more appropriate, I've got the numbers here. When I talked to Sound Thinking, I went ahead and pulled the numbers in preparation for that question.
He's saying that they can do the 1-year contract right now. So why would we delay it if that's the issue?
That is not the process.
He's saying within this cycle, we can have a 1-year contract. The police department is okay with that. So if that's what I'm in queue for too, to clarify that. If he can do that in this cycle, why would we delay it?
Councilmember Vita, you're on queue, and then we have City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Yes, so I was asking the exact clarifying question. In this cycle, would we be able to change this to a 1-year contract instead of a 3-year contract?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Vita, thank you for the question. Perhaps I can help clear it up a little bit here. We just, as we were coming in to do this presentation this afternoon, got all of the final numbers to be able to do this for a one-year contract. So that's why it wasn't built into this presentation. However, we do have the numbers in front of us. DC Riddle has had conversations with Sound Thinking to be able to do this extension for 1 year, especially knowing that this audit report is coming out, which I believe they did just send something to perhaps Chair Chavez to let them know that they are in line with getting that done and getting that audit in August.
Thank you, Director. And so, yes, I'm totally fine with that. I think it's reasonable to say, let's extend this out for a year and have the 1 year contract and get the audit report. But I don't understand why we would delay a cycle then. And if it's an amendment, I'm happy to bring an amendment forward to the original language. But I think we can move forward with this in a 1 year contract.
City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair Chavez and council members. From a procedural perspective here, we're talking about something that appears to have been a negotiated contract where all the terms were agreed to with 3 years assumed. So I would suggest that we need to allow time for the parties to go back to the table. It sounds like Sound Thinking is interested in working with the city. It sounds like the MPD is more than happy to bring forward a 1 year plan, but the terms of the contract might not look the same with 1 year versus 3 years. So I would encourage that time be allowed for all of the parties to get back to the table, figure out what actually works from a numbers perspective with that big of a change to a material term, and then bring it forward. If that can happen in 8 days, great, but I don't know if that's possible. So just suggest allowing time for negotiation.
Councilmember, you still back in queue?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would like to see if that could happen. Like, I don't want to just assume it can't, but I understand the time to, I support the time to negotiate the proper contract, but I've seen this happen in a council cycle.
Are you asking a
You
question?
see, what are you thinking? How much time do we need for this, you think?
I can do it right now, Chair, through the member. Well, it's the terms of the contract as far as the financial terms are identical. They have not fluctuated.
The city attorney is saying, though, that we need to make sure that they agree upon the contract is what I think I'm hearing. It's like that whatever the terms are, we got to make sure that both parties are agreeing and back at the table. But what I'm asking is, do we think that that can happen in 8 days, before the next council meeting?
Chair, councilperson. I don't see why not, to your concern. The contract for the 3 year that was proposed includes a grandfathered fee per square mile, which is $33,000. The current rate is $75,000 for new contracts. The proposed 1 year contract that Sound Thinking presented to me while we were coming over here maintains the $33,000 price per square mile. That the $33,000 does not include any expansion. The expansion was priced completely separate. So as far as the terms, I don't think that's not my arena. That's going to be somebody else's arena. But the terms for the finances and everything else, I don't think that should be deviated. So I don't think it would be exceedingly difficult to get this done in a timely fashion.
Thank you, DC. So, Chair Chavez, I guess what I'm asking here is that we allow this process to move forward. If it doesn't work, we can always delay at that point. If it's not solved, and we can move this forward with our recommendation. If it's not solved by the end of this cycle, we can always delay it at that point. But I would like us to at least try to get that 1 year contract on the docket this time around, if possible.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'm standing firm on the delay, mostly because my office met with OCS leadership last Friday, and we've had several conversations. Actually, this process is nothing different than what we did a year ago. And maybe, I don't know if this is a procedural overlook, but you cannot just quickly go and do a contract amendment even going to a one-year term without having our legal team involved, finance, procurement, it cannot be rushed. And based off of that process, even OCS leadership recommended, actually, instead of even sending this back to staff, delay it for a cycle so that you all can go do your due diligence and follow the advice that was just shared by our city attorneys, and that's common best practice. So that is the goal. The goal is to still do a 1 year. Council members should know this by now. We can't submit amendments regarding this. You all, as MPD or the originating department, the administration, would then need to provide the updates that has been cleared by our city attorneys and everyone else. So I hope everyone would know the proper process so legally we can do this correctly, and giving us a cycle where there's no interruption in our existing service allows us to do that. And that's great that you all have been able to get the figures. We're just saying, go work with our experts to put that in the appropriate paperwork so that when we take this up, it's done the right way. So that is why I'm standing firm on the one cycle delay. I would have loved if you all would have been able to do this process by next by full council, but from my understanding, that's not the case. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a little bit loud whispers, so it's hard to hear myself. Councilmember Rainville, can I finish my comments? Sorry, your whispers are a little bit loud. So just wanted to make sure there's clarification on that piece. And with that, I still move the item for a delay by one cycle.
Okay. All right, everyone, I think I have a plan. So one, I'll just start off by saying that I mentioned these concerns in agenda setting. So this isn't a surprise for anybody. It shouldn't be a surprise for staff to hear the concerns that I have about there's an audit coming in August. I mentioned that I would support a one-year contract. That way this body has the opportunity to look deep into the analysis. I don't like ShotSpotter. I don't support the use of ShotSpotter, but I also want to find a compromise, which is that one-year extension. That way we can at least take an analysis and study that issue. I think for us is, here's what I'll commit to. One, I will support Councilmember Wansley's motion. However, if staff is able to finalize this one-year agreement, I would commit to supporting getting this out of committee at full council. However, that would require 13 votes. And the only reason we would do that is because then you would have this one-year extension. So if you have the ability to work on this issue and get it done by full council, I'll vote for the suspension of this motion. However, I hope you hear that there's probably concerns of us getting this out of committee and this conversation that we just had doesn't happen. So what I will commit to here is supporting Councilmember Wansley's motion to delay a cycle. If you as staff are able to work quickly on this one-year extension, bring it forward. We can bring it to full council. We'll get the 13 votes to get it out of committee and then vote on that one-year extension. Are folks here okay with that?
Yes, but again, they were asked before this started to walk on a one-year deal. So that's what is challenging for me. They were asked to bring a one-year deal to the room, and they did, and now we're saying that needs a delay.
No. We can still bring it forward. It was just procedurally last minute. There was a lot of issues with a last minute whole new contract of a one-year extension. The details still need to get figured out and finalized, make sure it's legally sound with their city attorneys as well. I think here the delay for a cycle is to make sure we get it legally right. However, if staff gets it correctly done by full council, we can just walk it on with unanimous consent.
I am totally fine with that. I just want to say again, they were asked to walk on a one-year deal today.
There's no walk.
And they brought the one-year deal today.
So I did ask staff to bring it today. That is what happened. I asked them to bring it forward based on conversations we had in agenda setting, based on conversations we had with the police department as I was walking back into my car. After conversations with city clerks, they did mention that it was going to be very difficult to be able to walk that on. That being said, I think even that in itself would probably be impossible to have a contract between the last few minutes that we talked before committee and not. So, yes. So, colleagues, can we just agree to figure this out? Is that okay? Okay. So we'll move this delay to the next Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee, which is June 17th. Can I get a second for that? That's already been seconded. If this is figured out by full council, please work with our office so we can then bring it on to full council and ask for unanimous consent. Is that okay? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Any abstentions?
I just. From with the, oh, sorry. This was not an attempt to circumvent the contract. This was merely me trying to provide you data this board data in order to see what that would potentially look like. This was not a negotiation. This was more of just a fact finding to provide to this body. That was simply it.
All right, colleagues. Vice Chair, sorry, Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you. No, thank you, DC Reynolds. Again, we've been in numerous conversations around this. When we talked about a one-year contract, and I think this is maybe a byproduct of you're relatively new to this particular process, but when we say walk on an item, as we've done before, there is an actual amended contract that this body would have considered that would have had 1 year as part of it. It would have had updated financial numbers on there and updated terms and conditions, the things that our city attorney referenced. That was not provided today, and that is what was communicated in prior meetings. If you can provide that today, think, of course, there would have been agreement for that to exit out of the committee. If that was not provided by today, we will give you all the time to get that paperwork figured out, because that is standard procedure and process. So I don't think there's any malice intent. I think this was, I don't understand. Maybe OCS, I actually don't know what led to the absence of a walk-on RCA, the actual paperwork that would have allowed us to do official consideration of a 1 year. What we heard was a verbal agreement. That's great. That gives us the basis to do the actual paperwork, the legal component next cycle. And I thank you for going back and working with sound thinking to get us to this place. We just have to put this in the proper paperwork and do this the right way and then move forward. So thank you. And thank you also, Director Hodges.
All right, y'all, I think we got through all of our items. Correct? All right, y'all, well, that motion is at the next council meeting, next Public Health Safety Equity Committee. Our next discussion item is regarding a contract with Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County for direct energy assistance and administration. Yes, welcome.
Hello, Chair, Vice
Welcome.
Chair, Council members. My name's Alice Freilich. I use she and they pronouns. I work in the Health Department, and I manage the sustainability team within our climate and sustainability work group. I'm here today to talk a little bit about utility bill assistance and what that looks like moving forward. This is a new program. So in mid-2026, so the middle of this year, Minneapolis will fund residential utility bill pay assistance through the Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County. So that's not actually Hennepin County as a government entity. It's a different agency, nonprofit, that administers the funds. This initiative was made possible through allocation of funds from a 2026 budget amendment that was put forth by Councilmember Vita. And it's through the Climate Legacy Funds. So part of that residential addition that went forward through the budget process last year, a portion of that is funding this work. So CAP-HC, that Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County, plans to serve 240 households with grants of $500. These Minneapolis residents would not otherwise be served if not for this additional effort. So the Energy Assistance Program, to enroll in that, it requires an application and documentation to verify wages or other income. They look back a month at income. There's crisis assistance available, so if people are facing an immediate shutoff, there's immediate kind of assistance available for that. And the eligibility is based on household size and gross income. The funds are paid directly to the utility and can be split amongst multiple utilities. And there is a QR code there that can take you to the landing page for anyone that has access to these slides and would like to utilize that QR code to look for assistance. There's also a website. Here's a look at the eligibility. These income thresholds are set by the State of Minnesota Department of Commerce as of May 2026, so these could change in subsequent years. And that is all I have for you. I can stand for questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you so much for your steadfast work in the Health Department on making this program come to life. You know, when this funding got allocated, it was really just to help with folks who were saying they were struggling with the utility bills, but that struggle with utility bills has probably multiplied 10 times since Operation Metro Surge. One of the things we saw were a lot of folks needed rental assistance and mortgage assistance, but by far there were way more folks who needed utility assistance. And so I know the start of this is the 240 families, and I see this program growing. I'm glad that the kind of pilot that we're starting here is going to give us an opportunity to show the impact that we can have on families, and it's not focused on one utility company, but spreading it around to where folks need it, because we heard that a lot too. It's not just light, it's not just gas, it's not just water. It really sometimes is a combination of everything, or it's, you know, a large gas bill in the winter months. And it's also, the one thing that I'm most excited about is it's going to help us identify some of these homes that need winterization services and lead services and all these other things, because these folks are reaching out and talking to us about the utility needs, and sometimes we can tell by the bill amount that, you know, they need other help in those households. So this is very exciting for me as a member of the CAPHC board, but also as a person that's heard a lot that this is where people need help at. So thank you so much again for how quickly you all in the health department put this program together and worked with CAPHC to identify families and get this money out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Whiting.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Chavez, and also wanted to reiterate Councilmember Vita's comments as well. Just a deep version of thank you, a deep level of gratitude here for all the work that as somebody who sits on the CAPHC board, and then a note to Councilmember Vita for bringing this forward. Right, I think, you know, she deserves her flowers for making sure this came up in front of the body, and so very excited to support it. Just a shout out here to CAPHC. Kind of want to talk to kind of some of their larger programs, but emergency assistance, right, coming on there with this programming, their vehicle repair work, rental assistance, water assistance, tax filing resources, and then MNsure application assistance. And so you all are doing a fantastic job and continue to support the work of the city of Minneapolis. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vice Chair Stevenson.
Thank you for presenting on this. I took the QR code and was flipping through the website, and there's the weatherization referrals. Have you had much like uptake of those referrals and people weatherizing their homes?
Yeah, so this item was on the consent agenda, so this is our approval to start the contract.
Oh,
yeah.
Start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that.
We figured it was a good program to highlight that this body would be passing. So
Thank you.
Councilmember Vita, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to move this item.
On the motion to approve, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, colleagues. Item number, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17 is receiving a presentation providing background and overview of the Health Department's Green Careers Exploration Program and a Public Health Pathways Program. I'll invite Justo. And before you begin, without objection, Councilmember Brainville, would you like to be reflected as a yes on the previous vote?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Please,
Great.
yes.
Yep. Welcome, Justo.
It's not on there. Oh, wait. No, we sent it. Oh, thank you.
Welcome. ¿Cómo estás?
Chair Chavez, President Payne, and the honorable members of this wonderful committee, Public Health and Safety, Equity Committee is a pretty cool name. My name is Justo Garcia. I work with the Minneapolis Health Department. I'm the manager for the Green Career Exploration Program. We're just gonna have a slide in a little bit coming up. But I can just probably use this time to give you background information about this program. The Green Career Exploration Program basically started within the health department and really to address a need to inform, expose, educate, and provide certification to members of our community. And to provide information, the members of our communities of this, growing or emerging greenfield. We find out that there were great opportunities that provide really what we consider livable jobs that have the capacity to help individuals to accumulate or at least start building wealth. We prioritize pretty much communities that are located in areas who, historically have been marginalized, disfranchised. We actually have two locations, one in North and one in South Minneapolis. We understand that prioritizing and engaging promotion and access of the communities for the Green Careers pathway, we hope to create community ownership, economic and environmental opportunities that will lead to an equitable climate for all. So one question that come out is, what is a green career? And currently, I know the Department of Economic Development is actually working, and they being really collecting information to come up with a definition for what are exactly those green careers. But for us, what we did was we went out and partnered with our community members and came out with our own definitions, which basically said that green careers are those that improve the energy use and efficiency, reduce or limit greenhouse emissions, minimize waste, pollution, support environmental, community, and build adaptation for the climate change or challenge to the climate change. Ideally, those are really well-paying jobs, can improve the health of those who actually, the communities that they are working and the workers, and are equitable and inclusive and respect the rights and practice of our indigenous communities. So through this program, we do work in, I will say, 3 different pillars, which is education, exposure, and credentialing. That education starts in our education institutions and community-based organizations that work with our youth. So what we do is we bring programs and opportunities for exposure, and also work with the industry or recognize industry curriculum. We consult and find all what is necessary for individuals to start or enter in those careers. And if the credentials or certificates are necessary, then what we do is we really put the information together and bring it to our community members. We really look the green careers from the equity point of view. We, as I said in the beginning, we prioritize marginalized community. We understand that in order to be successful in getting our youth and young adults into this green career, we have to make it accessible. So those are free trainings, and we actually pay them in order to remove those barriers. Some of these trainings actually can be time burdensome. They are like, some of them can be from few weeks and to even 4 weeks. And so we understand it's a hard and long time to have an individual participating in the training and not being able to at least be able to support themselves. We really, when we also do, we are trauma informed because we really recruit and work within our community. We work training programs that prepare individuals in our community so they, in the future, are the individuals that came out and train members of their own community. So, because most likely they will individuals that we trust. Here are some examples of what the education institutions and community organizations that we work at exposure. And as you can see, we work with some institutions that are, culturally specific. As you can see, the AIMS Academy, they primarily serve Somali, El Colegio, Copal, serve Latino. We get PPL. We get not the Little Earth, they mainly serve Native Americans. So, and like I said at the beginning, by strategically having a location in North and South Minneapolis green zones, we are able to really capture the heart of our population. This is very important. It really is. We start as early as does elementary education, and we move all the way down to high school. That exposure to start right there. And all what it takes is for an individual to sometimes just have a positive experience to start expressing interest in one of those fields. And that's what the environment that we aim to provide. Some of our credentials, trainings, this is one of good examples in renewable or solar training. Those are nationally recognized credential individuals who complete these trainings and are able to obtain this type of certification will have a high opportunities to start working in this industry. And when we look at solar, for instance, it's not just the installation, but there is a whole other aspect that individuals that go to this training are able to learn and be able to integrate into this industry. This is another really good example. This is our sustainable anchor training. And we partnered actually with another great department, Public Work, for this particular training. And the idea is to prepare individuals also that we can incorporate in our seasonal employment events. Weatherization, this is, we just have a presentation of energy assistance, but this is another way that we can support our community members by helping them reduce that energy use by really teaching them, number one, areas in which those energy are living, the space or waste, and then being able to, they can understand and with that be able to reduce their energy costs. We move into many different areas. This is geographic information system. We have a drone pilot. All these very attractive training for youth and young adults that it really set them out for a pathway in these careers. This is some of our numbers. This is 2024. I mean, we have more than 335 participants. This was just as the first year, actually, of our Climate Legacy Initiative allocation. And as you can see, the impact is 69% of those populations and those communities that we really are moving to. This is our second year, and again, we increased programming, and again, our participation with our targeted communities extend. And so we are really, how are we advancing climate equity plan? Really through these green careers, through educating our communities, through exposing, and through building them to be part of that workforce. We are advancing our communities and putting them in a pathway to support our own climate initiatives. This is just some example of the partners that we were with. And so, questions?
I'll see. I know there's another part of the presentation too after, right? Yeah. How about we finish that part?
Yep.
And then we can maybe open up for questions. Thank you. Welcome.
All right. Hello, Council. My name is Giselle Martinez-Isea. Oh, my bad. All right. Hello, Council. My name is Giselle Martinez-Isea. I'm a public health specialist at the Minneapolis Health Department. I'll just be telling you all a little bit about the Public Health Pathways Program internship. All right, so the Public Health Pathways Program internship, as I had mentioned, is an internship at the Minneapolis Health Department. This internship is funded by the CDC FIG grant, so the Public Health Infrastructure Grant that was created in 2022 in order to mitigate the lessening of the public health workforce in order to be able to build the public health workforce in health departments, over 100 across the nation. So we were able to get this funding from FIG. So this is a 5-year grant that's from 2022 to 2027. We were able to begin the Public Health Pathways Program in 2024, focusing specifically on the workforce strategy of the Public Health Infrastructure Grant. So with the workforce focusing on recruiting, retaining, and supporting the workforce. Some short-term goals as part of that strategy is including to increase the hiring of diverse staff, and for long-term goals, that includes increasing the size of the public health workforce in general. All right, so the Public Health Pathways Program, there are 3 main goals of the Public Health Pathways Program is to diversify the public health workforce, provide early exposure and direct experience into public health, as well as provide pathways into employment for those who are interested in serving the communities of Minneapolis. So the Public Health Pathways Program is able to offer paid opportunities to explore public health careers in addition to paying for costs for access to trainings and certifications that may be needed, as well as opportunities and exposure that is available for high school, college, graduate students, as well as individuals that are not currently students to be able to participate, and offers opportunities to convert to a full-time position. So MHD as a whole has been able to develop many successful relationships and hire a number of full-time employees from various career development and experience programs over the years. We've been able to work with the CDC PHAP program, so Public Health Associate Program, AmeriCorps, university programs, and enterprise initiatives such as Urban Scholars and Step Up to bring in youth and young adults who are interested in the work of the department. So in developing and implementing the Public Health Career Pathways Program, we've worked closely with the City of Minneapolis Human Resource Department as well, and relied on existing programs such as Step Up and Urban Scholars. So some of the PHPP internship activities that we have, other than in general just working with their supervisor, we have them attend site visits to learn about how public health is implemented in the vision, mission, goals, and work of our Minneapolis Health Department community partners, as well as attend MHD division introduction meetings. So essentially they're meetings with our directors of the divisions to learn about how these divisions operate within the Minneapolis Health Department and how public health operates within it, as well as public health research article discussions. So they're able to engage with one another in readings and discussions in relation to topics of public health that they're interested in, career readiness presentations to learn about general public health subject matter and public health careers, And then finally, they also do lunch and learns at the end of the internship so that they can present their completed projects to their fellow interns, supervisors, and other MHC staff that are interested in learning about the work that they've done throughout the entirety of the internship. We also do public health career panels, so that's a little bit outside of the internship, but just to help students learn through panels that we do at Minneapolis public schools as well as Minneapolis universities and colleges so that they can learn about the career pathways we have at the Minneapolis Health Department, so they learn about what our staff do, and then also are able to have discussions with the staff about the work that they do. All right, so FIG strategies and cohorts. So PHPP consists of several major components and strategies for various levels of engagement. So the high-level focus areas are intended, such as expand intern recruitment beyond schools to collaborate with community organizations and pathway programs in terms of promotion for them to be able to participate and attend activities, as well as accepting applicants with equivalent experience and interest in public health. So that includes individuals that are not currently in college or pursuing college, individuals without public health experience or education, and individuals looking for a career change to public health in order to diversify the applicants that are being able to participate in the internship, as well as placing PHPP interns in some of our partner sites to help build the public health capacity just outside of the Minneapolis Health Department, so across the whole city in general. And then working to create point systems with the HR hiring process so that individuals that have participated in the program have a higher point ranking system when they apply to other positions within the City of Minneapolis enterprise. And then in terms of how the cohorts are organized, we have summer employment opportunities from June to August that are focused specifically for high school students, and those are full-time. And then our other cohort, in terms of how we organize it, they're part-time year-long employment opportunities during the school months, so from September to May, specifically focused on undergraduate, graduate students, as well as non-students who are currently pursuing public health or are interested in pursuing public health or related field without previous experience or education. So following data from our first cohort in spring of 2025, all the data on the slide is from our very first cohort. We had interns who were able to respond to a survey, and one of the first questions that we had asked that they had agreed or strongly agreed 100% that they had not known about public health than they did prior to the beginning of the internship. Over 83% had no previous education or work experience prior to participating in the internship, and half would say that they would consider a public health career after completing the internship. And we can also say, if you look at the little chart at the very bottom, that the Public Health Pathways program has been able to increase the amount of temporary employees in the past 10 years. It's the second highest bar in terms of the amount of temporary staff we've had per year. So we've been able to increase that in 2025 in the past 10 years. And then at the end of each cohort of interns, we also do focus groups for the interns as well as the supervisors in order to engage their feedback on the participation in the program. And we had asked about their biggest takeaways from the internship. Interns responded how many more career options there are for me than what they had thought, how many site visits we took in learning everyone's specific skills and how they play their role in community. I really enjoy doing hands-on work and community work, knowledge of public health and how it impacts our community. So the previous statements here are all examples of what and how they were able to gain that public health experience, and just showing that with the work of our previous interns that they're able to gain that knowledge of public health, but also be reaffirmed of their passion for public health as well. And that's it.
Yeah.
Any questions for Justo and I?
Well, one, just thank you, Giselle and Justo and the entire health department for the work on all these incredible programs that really allow many people in our community to have the opportunity to try different fields of work in our green fields, have these internship opportunities that really change people's lives. So I at least want to say thank you to the health department and to both of you, Justo and Giselle, and our staff that work hard on these programs. And I'll see if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments to begin with. Councilmember Pita.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I too just wanted to say thank you so much for the hard work you're putting into our young people. These non-traditional careers are, they pay a lot of money. These are like really good jobs, and lots of times kids don't have access or even know that these type of careers exist. So I am really proud of the work that you all are doing, proud of you all for continuing doing with this work with minimal resources. Thank you so much, and thanks for the impact you have on these young people's lives too. Their comments and their statements in these programs certainly show that they appreciate the ability to participate in the work that you all are doing with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing if any of my other colleagues have comments. Otherwise, just once again, thank you for the work and for presenting to us on the ongoing work that's going to happen. So we appreciate it. With that,
Thank you.
I'll ask the clerk to receive and file that report. And our last and final item is the report relating to the police department's participation in the federal task force. I'll invite Deputy Chief Travis Riddle to begin that presentation. And as we wait, this was a legislative directive that this body moved forward to full council relating to the Minneapolis Police Department participation in the Homeland Security Task Force. And it was an opportunity for us to dive deeper into what those task force are, and more. Welcome. Oh, we're on the item. There we go. That's the item.
You ready? Okay. So, Chair, Vice Chair, what I would like to discuss with y'all today is the ask from this body for an explanation of MPD's involvement with the Homeland Security Task Force. And so what I would like to do is take some time and explain to you exactly what that task force looks like, the history of that task force, and also the function of that task force. So for those that are not familiar, the Department of Homeland Security is a blanket organization, much as the Department of Justice is a blanket organization of subcomponents underneath that umbrella. So in this case, we have CBP, ICE, HSI. We also have Secret Service, TSA. We have the Coast Guard, and also FEMA. Much as the Department of Justice is an umbrella agency, we have FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and also the Bureau of Prisons, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. So currently, the partnerships that MPD shares with other federal partners are with ATF. The purpose of ATF is to address violent firearm offenses. It also helps us with our crime gun intelligence and also our NIBIN system. The FBI is assisting us to address organized crime and fraud issues. Marshal Service assists us in apprehending violent fugitives and also with warrant service. Basically, this allows us as a force multiplier. It allows us to do more with less. So to give you a little back history, in 1982, the Reagan administration brought forth OCDETF, which is the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. Their role was to address transnational narcotics organizations and also organized crime. The head component of that was Department of Justice. It consisted of the DOJ agencies, FBI, ATF, DEA, Marshals, also state and local partners, and their sole purpose was to address the, like I said, the transnational narcotics groups. I'll do both. So in 2025, the administration refocused and renamed OCDETF and put the responsibilities of OCDETF into the Homeland Security Task Force. Homeland Security Task Force was moved from the Department of Justice to the Department of Homeland Security, with two agencies that were co-heads of that. One was HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. The other one was co-chaired by the FBI. They share the responsibilities for the oversight on that. The mission of the Homeland Security Task Force is not any different than it was for OCDF. They changed the name as they transitioned the funding from OCDF to the Homeland Security Task Force. So to be a participant in the Homeland Security Task Force does not mean that the city or any officer of the city has entered into an agreement with DHS. It merely states that a component, in this case, the FBI. We have an officer that works with the FBI as a task force officer. They are working a case. That case falls under the Homeland Security Task Force. So when the reimbursement is requested, it's for an FBI task force officer, but it is asked for reimbursement from the Homeland Security Task Force.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So colleagues, I am going to make a motion to postpone this item, and we'll discuss the presentation today to July 8th, just so we can continue talking about this. There's a lot of missing parts in the presentation that was asked on the legislative directive, and just for the public, part of it was a full text of any agreements or MOU between MPD and any federal agency related to the Homeland Security Task Force, the total number of MPD officers assigned to the Homeland Security Task Force related duties, the duration of their assignment, and whether a scheduled end date exists for the collaboration, how the city is monitoring to ensure compliance with the separation ordinance for MPD officers assigned to these duties. And there's a lot more, so what I'm just gonna ask is that next cycle is gonna be pretty busy. There's gonna be a lot of public hearings. I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be really hard to have this come back before the council with this information because it's going to be busy. So I am asking for support to postpone this item or delay this item until the following 2 cycles from now, the Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee, which would be July 8th, I believe. I'll ask for support on that, but I really would urge the police department to please read the legislative directive and come back with answers to the request, because there is a lot of information, particularly how the city of Minneapolis and the police department will enforce its separation ordinance when we are entering into agreements with this Homeland Security Task Force, what the role of the police department is when our officers are being deputized by the federal government, which is a big concern for me, and a lot more stuff. So at least I'll start there. I'll pass it to my colleagues. I assume people have questions.
I'll second that motion.
And then Councilmember Wansley seconded that motion, and I'll pass it to you, Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'll be supporting this motion as well, and I think it's important, and why I was really looking forward to the presentation today, and it was raised by residents during the public hearing on the first ordinance around, we're literally a year from June 3rd of last year, where the Trump administration led their first test of Minneapolis with a raid on East Lake Street. And residents for sure passed the test. They showed up to defend each other, but city leaders here, MPD, Mayor Fry, they failed. Absolutely failed. They amplified the message that those who did show up was not doing so in intentional way. They also named the operation as just a simple drug bust, and those out there were interfering in basically the Department of Homeland Security's efforts to do their job, and that those folks should have just stayed home. And now we do know that one of the people who were targeted in that operation was subjected to immigration sentencing as a result of that raid. And it's those type of partnerships that I think warrant this legislative directive, especially most recently, and please correct me if I'm wrong, President Payne, I do know the same period or several weeks, no, like back in March, we heard, of course, our mayor go out and say, we want, ICE out of here, but then 14 days later, we learned that the city entered into another contract or agreement with the Homeland Security Task Force or Homeland Security, and it was unclear as to what, especially when, you have residents out here putting their bodies on the line, resisting the Trump administration, and are, being attacked for it. It was wild to see then we're entering into an obscure agreement with that same administration, and for what? And I think the legislative directive asked the for what piece. What is this partnership being used for as it pertains to meeting the needs and the well-being of our residents, and it did not answer the bulk of that legislative directive. So I think it's appropriate for us to take the time the next, several weeks to allow the administration to go back and review and provide some more robust responses so that the public in this council can have more clarity and transparency of the utility of these agreements, especially in this climate where we have a hostile federal government that's attacking our immigrant neighbors. Chair Chavez raised the fact that we even had an immigrant neighbor who was detained just this morning. So I think it's even more timely that we're being that we're scrutinizing these type of agreements when we know that our immigrant neighbors are still not safe, and want to make sure that our agreements are not essentially helping intensify that lack of safety for those residents. So I'll be supporting this, and thank you for making the motion.
Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and I'll also be supporting this motion. And actually, I want to thank you, DC Riddle, for putting some of this additional context here with this memo from the DOJ, and I think it actually starts unpacking really what our question is with this legislative directive and the question that we're trying to answer, which is, as Councilmember Wansley said, we are exactly to the day 1 year away from an operation that was said to be strictly criminal in nature and not an immigration enforcement operation. However, the only charges that we know of to date is an immigration charge. And it's actually really helpful to see this history of it. Used to be the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force and the Project Safe Neighborhood that are combined. And I think that taking these clear mission-based task forces around organized crime and things of that nature, and then conflating it with immigration enforcement. And the very first underlined section here is repelling the invasion of illegal immigration. This is our concern. We've by law said MPD does not do immigration enforcement, and yet we're engaging in task forces that have an explicit immigration enforcement mission. We owe it to our community to say that we are upholding that ordinance, and it's just, this does not clarify that. This almost makes it even worse. And so I'm going to make I'm not going to speak for the other authors of this legislative directive, but I would love to sit down with you and talk through what we're really trying to understand here, because we learned of the task force through the media, through one contract with the media, but we want to know what other task force contracts exist with what agencies. It sounds like perhaps this isn't just an FBI thing, that once it seems that the federal administration is trying to consolidate all of these law enforcement agencies under one core mission, which does seem to have quite a lot of overlap with what makes it illegal to participate, which is our separation ordinance. So I'll invite a deeper conversation into it so that come July, hopefully we can share with our community how we're upholding our separation ordinance, what controls we have in place to make sure that we are not engaging in something that is a violation of our local law. So that's all I wanted to add.
Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Thank you, DC Riddle, for trying to present, what you could out of this. I know, several points have been made about a time before you got here. So I'm sure you can hear that there are questions about things that happened before you got here. And I appreciate the council president saying that he's gonna meet with you and talk through some of the questions that he has. I think that's important. I certainly support my colleagues getting the information they want. So I'll be supporting this today. I just hope that the department comes together. I know this is there's a little bit of, change is happening, and I just hope the right people are listening and can come together and get the answers for the answers to these questions. But I also just wanted to say, this has nothing to do with you, DC Riddle. You really have done a good job at presenting what you have the knowledge on. And I also just hope that we focus on the answers to this legislative directive and not about the mayor or other people, like that this doesn't become a blame thing. And it really is about us getting the information that council has asked for, and it doesn't become about people or, attacks and putting staff in the middle of just getting information. There are questions asked in the legislative directive, and there are answers owed to folks. And so I really hope it becomes that, and not this back and forth about who did what a year ago, especially because D.C. Riddle wasn't here, and he seems to be the person who is tasked with presenting us this information.
Awesome. So, on the motion, and for clerks, if you can help me here, is it postpone or delay? Same thing.
Same.
Postpone this item until the July 8th Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee. That has already been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, that was the last item on the agenda. And seeing no further discussion, I'll ask the clerk no, we're good. Seeing no further business before us, I will declare this meeting adjourned.